by the wonderful Rebel Fox. We've had a few casts so far this split, and now we've got one more to see which of these two teams will be representing Vietnam at Worlds. Of course, both of them could eventually head to Worlds.
It feels like this is predestined at this point. I mean, what has been 4 splits now that Saigon Buffalo with this iteration or rough iteration of the roster has kind of been together. And in 3 of those splits, this has been the eventual final between the two. I know we're not quite to that point yet, but the fact that Saigon has been such an incredible addition to the league when they came in with all of their substitutes, just been the primary contender against GAM most of the time. We thought it was going to be Cerberus. Maybe there's still a future for that when Cerberus is able to kind of put their team together. But in the meantime, at least, Saigon Buffalo are the ones that are consistently challenging GAM for the position of number 1 inside of the VCS. Pretty much the only thing that's driving them to be a very competitive roster, as we've seen not a lot of other teams have been able to stand up to that type of adversity.
And when we wind the clocks back and we look to 2021 spring, which is when Saigon Buffalo got this roster, the only real difference between these two teams was the fact that Arietti was playing in that ADC role over Shogun. Of course, they did switch around at some point in that split, and we saw Shogun getting a bit of game time. As speaking of Shogun, we're seeing the bottom lane having a bit of a trade, and Shogun and Taki coming out the worst of our bot lane duos.
Yeah, I think we're watching both sides of the bot lane for a very long time, specifically in this series. I think they've had 2 of the better performing bot laners, and they've got the 2 best supports inside of the VCS, especially this split. I've held that they've been the top 2 in every split since their inception. They're 2 of the best permanently. Ron OP sometimes challenges that preconception. But for this split specifically, especially Taki and B have been absolutely positively the best 2 supports in the league. And that's what makes this bot lane matchup just such an interest, because both sides have such electrifying players, such important players to everything. As Levi finds his way to the bottom, does get shut out. Well played by Taki's positioning very well. Not going to get pillared backwards either. Wow.
And very smart from Taki and Shogun, just to back away. They don't want to take anything too risky. Good death sentence lands onto B, the play as well. And now we have a teleport into the bottom lane. B is so incredibly low. Flash over the wall, and BJ secures the first blood. Style on the run, flashes over the Krug wall, but BJ will follow. Hasbet in pursuit, and it's a double kill for the Wukong.
Okay, it is GAM who try to initiate with this play on the bottom side, using the Trundle to dive this Aphelios and this Thresh in the earlier portion of the game, but it does not work in the slightest. The counter punch coming through from Saigon Buffalo between the teleport and BJ's entrance to the bottom side of the fight shuts out this early attempted play from the combination of the Renata Callista, and it ruins this laning phase, because now, I mean, you got 2 kills on BJ. BJ gets to run this map. He's not a player that you really want to be giving a bunch of resource to. He's proven to be an incredible entity for this team as well. As back to bottom side, they win again.
B just gets caught. Levi a little bit too late to the party, but Taki being run down, spears being shoved inside the Thresh, ripped out, and Star picks up the first kill for GAM.
I think they're okay with that, though. Once again, you do trade 1 for 1, but the Aphelios pulls the kill. And this is awesome, because on bottom side, they didn't really have to. They could have walked away from the situation, left the tower, just sacked the wave. Instead, GAM sticks around because they're trying to make sure they can't access this, but they are not ready for the counter engage from BJ. Not to mention, Thresh has been out of the meta for some time, or at least not been played inside the meta for some time. And it's meant that, not a lot of people are used to having this much CC or having to play against this much CC. It was B that got caught up at the beginning of that play. And the one champion that kind of makes everything work right there is, of course, Taki's Thresh. Is CC being able to kind of disrupt everything, buy enough time for the reinforce, really is what gave them the early lead here.
I think the word meta and normal picks do not exist within Taki's dictionary. Sure. This is the guy who pulls out champions like the Rumble in the support role and makes it work as well. And you talked about how these are the 2 best supports, 2 best ADC. In general, if you're looking at the best player in every single role within Vietnam, you would be picking probably 4 out of the 5 players here, maybe even 5 out of 5. The only question mark would probably be around the mid lane, which is Artifact.
Okay, so this is what happened a second ago. Taki missed a hook right here, which could have... It probably would have made this easier, but ultimately I think it still would have probably led to the death of Taki, given that maybe it would have been a little faster, maybe they would have been able to save the flay for things, and maybe that could have made a bit of a difference, but ultimately that was the play. And I think they're comfortable with it, because again, you were getting kills onto Aphelios, you're helping win in that regard relatively quickly. But yeah, as you were talking about, usually GAM is considered to have the best of the best in each single role. I think that's been contested more hotly this split than just about ever. You got like even SE had players where like Emperor was challenging for Kiaya, that type of thing. I think it was like the first early week, the 4-kill solo kill kind of performance that really did it. But every one of their roles really has been contested a lot more this split across multiple teams than it did previously, which is what made this split such an exciting time. And really, I think it was what pushed GAM into a bad situation to begin the split. So coming into playoffs, obviously they're on a completely different trajectory. I know we've had our criticism of Kadi, but Kadi has been electrifying both in their playoff series and towards the end of the season. As right now, gearing up potentially for more fight. Froggy hasn't left bot lane or hasn't left mid lane. Bot lane, he's able to come up and maybe be around the backside of the pit, but that's about it. I doubt they're going to challenge fully into GAM's position in the river.
Froggy with no mana and Saigon Buffalo do not want to contest this first streak of the day. Will get handed over to GAM. We'll wait for that first Rift Herald, which will be coming up in about 1 minute's time. And that's probably where we're going to be seeing a bit more action from both of the teams.
We definitely could be, especially since Hosmed now has heal cut for the top lane up against the Aatrox. You should have a good enough ability to battle Kiaya back, and the 2 kills on the Wukong, especially if you get another back timer here before the Rift Herald, should mean that Wukong is in a fantastic position. The curiosity comes down to GAM. Where do they go with their bot lane? Do they return to bot right now, or are they going to try to go to top side to put one of their either B or both style and B to the top side of the map? It seems like they're just redeploying to bottom side, which would give a slight opening over here to Saigon Buffalo. If they wanted to transition Taki to topside, which is what's happening in the deployment on the map, then it looks like they're going to be making a play for that Rift Herald. Potential here is that this wave is currently bouncing off of top tower because Kiaya is quickly kind of clearing this wave away. If Kiaya doesn't back, there's potential for Hosmed to just like set up a gank with the Wukong and Thresh coming to topside. Instead, I think Kiaya is just like, all right, I'll TP back, something like that. He'll catch the wave underneath the tower. And that means that there's plenty of room in the river to work with here from Saigon Buffalo.
And while Saigon Buffalo are looking around this top side of the map, you can see Levi on the bottom side of the map trying to deny Shogun as much experience as possible and trying to accelerate style in this game.
Yeah, it's a situation where, I think Levi knew the cross map was the right play to go for here because he knew that there was no setup to be had on the Rift Herald side. So instead, Shogun going to lose a couple of plates off of his turret side. Oh, Taki is here. So is Froggy, actually. Multiple members of both teams just apparating in the bottom side.
This does mean that B&J pretty much has a free Rift Herald to secure, and Froggy just waiting, hoping that Levi party over.
Oh, no! Shogun didn't auto the minion. It was like maybe an auto attack away from dying. If he had auto attacked it one time, Taki's hook probably lands right there because he threw it in the right direction. That's such an upsetting thing. Oh, I know it's going in the cringe compilation too. That's what makes me so upset about it because it was actually a good hook. It's just they didn't clear the minion away.
I absolutely love it when you play champions like Thresh, even Nautilus, and you wait for that final minion to die, but you throw out your hook just before it dies, and sometimes
fractions of a second too
off
early.
The enemy laner, and you look like an absolute god. Sadly for Taki, not going to work out this time around, but Taki having a good game so far, been around the map, but mainly it was just that one big play that we saw on the bottom side that has been able to net Saigon Buffalo this 1k goal lead.
The biggest thing right now is that Kalista is back into a position of power pretty significantly in a game like this. It's been still not the easiest of bottom lanes here.
Making their way up, they're going to be able to pick up this Scuttle Crab, secure some vision on the bottom side of the map. We don't have a Drake for another 2 minutes, and that Rift Herald that we were talking about earlier, Rebel, secured by Saigon Buffalo in the pockets of B&J.
Sure was. And a play of where you can kind of toss that down, there's a number of options here. I think it's easy to put it in the Renekton's hands, but then you're putting gold into Renekton as opposed to putting it into either Silas or Aphelios. So I guess it depends on what they would like to do. But so far, their bottom lane's been playing well. That's a bold move from Taki. Forces the flash out of B.
Yeah, and Taki caught out, goes Golden B&J here. Froggy on his way over as well. Cyclone finds a knock-up on a Style. Taki will fall, but the bailout is used too late, and Style won't resurrect. His 2 kills for Saigon Buffalo. Cleanse, flash, Shogun finds the kill onto Levi, and now it's just the mid laners duking it out, but Froggy has the upper advantage over Kati. The Rune Prison locks Froggy in place, and Kati is able to take the Realm Warp out to safety.
an absolutely absurd skirmish coming around the bottom side of the map right here between Saigon and GAM, where 4 members from both teams show up, and it ends up being 3 kills. Your top lane didn't want to be left out of that situation either.
This is the VCS. We fight, and fight some more. Harsmed and Kiai duking it out in the top lane. Both of them forced to burn their ultimates, but neither of them will pay the ultimate price.
Wow. And during the course of that fight, I mean, you end up picking up a couple of kills for both Froggy and also Aphelios that I think leads to a solid situation. Taki, what a maneuver, too. He knows he has reinforcements, and it takes him so long. The stopwatch is perfectly used to buy time, because now look at this. BJ showing up, Froggy showing up, Shogun's able to auto overtop the wall. Style goes down so quickly in exchange for Taki. That's worthwhile. Then you get a burst onto Levi as well, in exchange for BJ. And then Shogun here making
on
the flash play.
In
Oh my
picture.
goodness,
Oh, I saw a big 3-man play coming through from Taki. Style is so low. Levi on the run. Shogun surely gets a kill. Lands a final auto attack. And the chains touch on to B. And it's another kill. Harsmed follows. Style will fall as well. And GAM are on the ropes. It's a double kill for Harsmed. And he wants more as well. The Rune Prison will be able to find a slow. And Kati will be able to run to safety in the mid lane. But Saigon Buffalo are showing up in game 1 of the upper bracket finals.
And another massive kind of play coming through here from Saigon Buffalo. And it looks like what happened is they actually pushed back top lane to get top tower with the Rift Herald. And during the midst of that play, it was Harsmed TPing into bottom side. They weren't expecting a response that quick off the cross map play, but you're comfortable giving gold over to the Wukong. You're comfortable giving gold to BJ. And so GAM right there, I think, just pushing the boundaries of what they expected, because they weren't ready for Harsmed to show up to a skirmish. We'll see if that's the case. Yeah, you can see they popped Rift Herald top lane. Weren't expecting this from Harsmed to just pop up and do everything. Not to mention, this Renata ultimate was not used properly and set up very poorly, so that Froggy had a perfect engage. Taki, an insane engage with the Thresh to be able to make things happen. Just let things run wild.
We're still fighting as well, Rebel. And it's still Saigon Buffalo who are winning the fight. Be over the wall, able to survive, in Style will be able to find the shutdown onto Shogun, but it's still a 2-for-1 because Saigon Buffalo won the fight on the other side of the river.
Goodness gracious. They're kind of stuck underneath the tower now. Style's going to be able to continue to push out the wave, but now mid tower's under aggression. We are just in an unceasing territory of fighting coming out from these two teams somehow between Saigon Buffalo again. We kind of weren't expecting that necessarily. We know both these teams are capable of scrapping early, but it's not really the forte that we normally expect. But here, willing to do it again and again is the side of Saigon. Right there, I think punishing a dragon take from GAM, where just every timer GAM has had, they've been able to try to find a fight on it, which I can respect from Saigon Buffalo. Getting this gold advantage up when they're down 2 dragons means they have better chance of fighting back, second, third dragon, that type of territory, which is exactly what you're looking for.
A 3k goal lead for Saigon Buffalo right now, which I'm going to be honest is not what I was expecting heading into this game, considering the performances that we've been seeing from GAM and Saigon Buffalo. GAM currently on a 9 series win streak. They've been looking untouchable, but when we look at the recent playoff performances, I mean, we consider that GAM series against SE, it wasn't a particularly strong showing from GAM.
Yeah, we don't know what caused that, whether it was SE being really competitive on the day or whether it was GAM that was just a little bit sloppy on the day, something along those lines. But what we can tell is that Saigon Buffalo has just been looking great since the final week of play up against even during the regular season. Like the end of their break was really stupendous. They looked great against Team Secret, who beat SE, and so we were anticipating Saigon Buffalo to come into here with quite a bit of ferocity, and I think they've been able to do that so far in a lot better way than we normally are accustomed to seeing. They're still giving over neutral objectives, which has always been historically the problem with Saigon Buffalo during these GAM series, is that they have really good fights. They look amazing in team fights most of the time, but they usually just give up too much on the map in general. But in this game, they've done a good job kind of responding to it. They're down 2 dragons, yes, but they pulled the top tower. They've been able to put some pressure into mid tower a little bit during the course of the game as well. The one place on the map where you don't have push is bottom lane, and that's where they've been fighting around, trying to get some additional gold into Shogun, which has worked out okay. And they captured both Rift Heralds. So again, when it comes to objective control, clearly they had a much better game plan walking into this game than they had the last time that these two met in spring finals.
And the solo laners from Saigon Buffalo have been playing particularly well, I feel, and I think that's quite clearly highlighted as well, just by looking towards statistics and looking towards KDAs. Harsmed being 2-0 on the Renekton, Froggy 1-4 on the Silas. He has been all over the place, picking up kills and coming in rather clutch so far for Saigon Buffalo, and we'll see whether he can carry this lead, carry this advantage into the mid stage of the game.
Oh.
Pillar onto BJ. BJ turns his attention towards Levi, but there's a huge cohort of GAM members showing up into the mid lane, and Froggy has not arrived yet, so Saigon Buffalo will be forced to back away momentarily.
He will. Okay, just some Raptors stolen away here by Cotty in pretty significant fashion. I think Rift Herald was also taken by... it was taken by BJ in the midst of everything. Okay, so that makes a little bit of sense, as once again, under the tower.
And Saigon Buffalo are just duking with GAM right now. They're buying time for Hazmet to shove in the top lane, maybe get some damage on it to the inner tower. And if GAM continue to stay mid lane, there's always that opportunity of one of those big Renekton flank plays.
One of the biggest fears, I think, that have popped up right now for the side of Saigon Buffalo is that this Thresh is pretty squishy. A couple of times now where a Q or an ultimate lands onto Taki has been legitimately the death sentence coming in from Renata, which is an interaction that I think was definitely possible when they walked into this matchup specifically. The champion has enabled Taki to make some really impressive plays over the course of the game, but again, if you get popped that quickly, especially into the later stages, B is going to make such easy work of ensuring that there's always going to be a numbers advantage for GAM if all you have to do is expend Q or base ability in order to make that happen, or force out a summoner spell from Taki during the meantime. However, they actually catch a really amazing timer. A lot of the members of GAM were caught sleeping on a same back timer, which has allowed them to go in for potentially mid tower getting brought down. Should open it up for Shogun, and that's exactly what happens. Wow,
who gets the Lantern priority. Cyclone finds to knock up the box, has been dropped down, but Saigon Buffalo just trying to disengage after they pick up the mid lane outer tower. Drake spawning in 10 seconds time, and Saigon Buffalo want to be controlling the river.
Yeah, they're down their one ultimate, but Styles down his ultimate as well. Okay, Froggy's not going to be able to catch Style. It's Hazmet.
Hazmet in a 1v2 taking a lot of damage, but he's taking Kati solo, flashes over the wall. Meanwhile, the rest of Saigon Buffalo turn towards Style. Big hostile takeover from B, and it's a shutdown for Kiaya as Hazmet will be killed. Shogun on the run, knockup comes through, Flame tethers drop down. Kiaya going on the tower, good play on the tower, but it doesn't matter. Style finds one, and he looks for BJ as well. It's a triple kill for the GAM ADC, but he will fall as well in overall 4 kills for 1 for the side of GAM.
And it's massive difference making at the front end of the fight coming out here. Every single summoner spell blown by GAM, every single ultimate cooldown possibly imaginable, but they have wrestled their way back into a game like this, now getting third dragon, putting themselves in a position to get to Ocean Soul Point, which will make them so difficult to try to fight coming into the later stages, when you have to worry about the healing and such. As Saigon Buffalo wants to punish this dragon take right now.
Hazmet teleporting in, one has already fallen, now they're looking towards a Kiaya as well. Umbral chains, Kiaya dashes over the wall, Froggy will follow, and Froggy will find the double kill.
Okay, I mean, it's something, again, it's still a difficult position to find yourself in if you're Saigon Buffalo, because you're down 3 dragons this early. Yes, you have 3,000 gold advantage, but it wasn't sufficient to just easily break open a fight a second ago. You're still worried about the prospects of what happens in the future of this game, just because of what you just gave up. What was the problem in that previous fight? If we get a replay of it, we'll be able to break it down a little bit better. But that is a fear to be held, is that GAM's composition does well in some of this mid game. You saw the power of the Aatrox coming through with this bottom lane combination, and that was sufficient to really win things. I mean, Hosband nearly just one-tapped Kadi to kick off this fight, which I think is what really prompted Saigon to go for it. And they almost got an assassination onto Style, but again, this amazing ultimate from B combined with Style just being able to dance out of that, it's what really killed this entire thing. B's ultimate, once again, becoming this massive clutch tool to ensure they don't have to worry about any sort of engage after the fact. It means the GAM really in a good position inside of this game, now able to kind of posture around the dragon, now able to buy themselves time if they wanted. They are the ones that get to dictate the future around this dragon pit, unless they really yield control to Saigon.
And Saigon Buffalo had control of this game. They arguably still do if you just look at it from a gold perspective. But GAM have been able to get Drake after Drake after Drake, and now they find themselves on Ocean Soul Point. And if they are able to secure that Ocean Soul, that's going to be helping them so much towards the late game, which might help undo some of the advantages that Saigon Buffalo had, especially when you look towards this ADC role, considering the scaling aspects of it.
Yeah, and in the most important of kind of avenues inside of a game like this, right now Style is disgustingly fed. right now far and away the strongest member on both teams. And because of that, they need to find a way to get BJ, to get Froggy or Hazmed on top of this Callista to ensure that it's locked down. Again, this is where B has some of the most strength, is that you're disengaging for the Callista. You can be thrown in and you can attack somebody like that. There's a lot of ways to have a ton of value as Style inside of this game. But if Style ever were to fall inside of a fight, if Style were to get shut down, I think the game starts to flow back to the side of Saigon Buffalo. It's all about GAM's ability to protect their ADC while he just destroys the enemies. It's happened again and again inside of this game. It's Hazmed.
He's forced to burn the Dominus. He's forced out of the fight. Kiaya still pushing in the side lane. GAM happy to play this a 4v5 and actually almost finding a kill as well.
And it's been a couple of times now that there's been this push-up from GAM to try to break the mid tower. Hasn't quite been able to work. And with Hazmed down and with no TP, they're actually feeling comfortable about going for Baron since they know that Hazmed had to back right there. And so they're forcing it. They're going for it right now, trying to boat out a team fight. There's every tool available for Saigon Buffalo, so you do have to be terrified about that. Baron down to half health. Hazmed's not quite here, but he's going to be on an amazing flank.
Hostile takeover lands onto just one, but Taki gets obliterated instantly. Levi is low, and it makes it a 1-for-1. Hostile takeover will only land onto Kiai. It's a double kill for Style, 2-for-1. BJ on the run. Realm Warp, no one will take it. They're going to just run directly at Saigon Buffalo. Kiai looking towards the Froggy. Froggy's going to go in. Will go golden. Kiai is low, but he's healing up so darn much. Froggy flashes away, but Kati flashes in pursuit, and we'll find the shutdown onto Froggy. 3-for-1 for GAM.
Okay, there should be break of mid tower, but I think the Baron is off the table now for the side of GAM. As once again, they're baiting out a fight more than anything else. I think it's like a position where it's like if Saigon doesn't contest, yes, they get the Baron, but otherwise they're looking to turn and looking to make a play. And I think they actually almost lost that situation. They had to be really careful in the midst of everything. They get to pick on Taki once again. He is an incredibly squishy champion when he's built the way that he is. Almost delivered a Gravitum ultimate, but Shogun's not that powerful at this point. But you can see the front to back. Shogun is starting to get to the point where the damage is sufficient. It's just that nobody else has been able to really deliver the same kind of pressure into Style that others have been able to deliver into Shogun. And so this is just them running at them. Kiaya, again, also is just a beast. And again, with Shogun 3 items, probably just absolutely rips Kiaya right here. But he's just too far behind inside of the game, or at least he's not where he needs to be inside of the game. Again, the longer they can buy for Shogun to be able to develop and get onto some of the late game itemization, the better that this game comes for Saigon Buffalo. The question is whether they bought themselves the time to be able to scale up, win a team fight, and prevent this dragon from coming through, because that could be another really massive boon for GAM that ends up winning them this game.
Oh, good play onto Style. Forces the GAM ADC to burn the flash. No cleanse on Style, but the Fate's Call will be up momentarily. This is a big fight for Saigon Buffalo. They can't let GAM secure the Ocean Soul. Kati goes in, and GAM won the fight. They find a 2-man knockup. Froggy is already dead. Hazmed forced to flash over the wall, and GAM have found their prize. Kiaya will fall. Shogun flashing forward. He's looking towards Kati, but Shogun will die. BJ can do absolutely nothing. Realm Warp and B is going to follow Taki. Good death sentence on to Kati from Taki, but Taki can't do anything more with it, and GAM will just pick up the soul for free.
And right there, you could see how badly Shogun really wanted to work his way through that team, but there's just too much damage coming through from GAM all at once. He doesn't have the ability to rip through anyone quick enough to really make this happen. And because of that, now GAM, sitting on Ocean Soul, putting themselves in a position where this earlier game team fight is going to continue working out the way that it did. I kind of liked the idea of potentially throwing somebody. Froggy made the attempt happen. And again, here's Shogun. Look at him. Look how close he is to just dominating this fight, but all of GAM can turn. There's nobody that's pulling their attention. But BJ unfortunately went diving just a little too quickly. So Taki wasn't in the middle of the team, and because of that, there's just no one to put in effort towards except for that one Aphelios. So it ends up working out greatly for GAM. We can now hold the Ocean Soul, now hold everything in the game in terms of cards. It's going to be real difficult, I think, for the side of Saigon Buffalo to find the aggression that they want now that this team has permanent healing and they've got multi-target attack from both their ADC and their mid laner. GAM feels like they can just walk this one in slowly without having to worry too much.
A very fun stat that I want to bring up, also I say very fun, that is of course subjective, is Aatrox and Renekton. Neither Kiaya or Hazmed have lost a single game on this champion over the split. They're both very, very effective on these particular picks, but one of them are going to have to lose in this game as BJ is getting caught out. Carti is on the hunt, lands an overload, not in range for the rune prison, or maybe, yes he is, overload into the spell flux, and Carti will find a pick on the Saigon Buffalo jungler.
And that's humongous because now they start at Baron and there's no threat of a smite actually coming through. You can see Froggy's kind of cross-mapping, so I don't even know that they want to contest this. Yeah, it seems like they're not even going to walk in. They're not going to go for it. They're not going to try to throw the game away. Saigon Buffalo must have a really true belief that they can still win a game like this if they weren't willing to try to fight right there. Because it's, again, one of the positions where Shogun feels like he could have so much of a good effect inside of these small fights. It's the same with Froggy being able to jump in, Hosmed being able to jump in. That's where they want them to be. And so they have to believe that they can actually still win out a game like this in the long term if they just wait long enough. Otherwise, they wouldn't have been doing this type of thing. As it's Froggy getting the cross map, the first kind of take, the first objective bounty coming through for the side of Saigon Buffalo. As GAM just sets up for the push on bottom side. Honestly, they might just crack inhibitor turret at this point with this Baron buff and with everyone scattered to the wind the way that Saigon is, or they just take their towers and walk away.
Style 4 items. Shogun
Disgusting.
doesn't even have 3. That is the gap between the ADCs right now. I'd love to be able to see what that exactly looks like in terms of goal numbers, but I doubt that the observers will be bringing that one up. And as you mentioned, GAM could have looked for more in the top lane, but they're playing things sensibly. They know they don't have to rush anything. They know they're stronger, but Style maybe a step too far forward. Both hostile takeovers has come through, and Style is just untouched. He's just hopping and throwing out spear after spear, and Saigon Buffalo get wiped. 2 members already down, a Realm Warp as well. They look for Hosmed, who can do nothing in the face of adversity, in the face of GAM, who now march their way forward in the mid lane.
And right there, that's going to break game number 1 very easily. GAM has played around their bottom lane. Both teams actually played around their bottom lane to kick things off. But the early game from Style, the ability to kind of stand, like snowball gold, and nobody's ability on Saigon Buffalo to really have the damage to bring down that champion in one fell swoop has led to a point where now Saigon Buffalo falls. GAM takes game number 1 in pretty convincing fashion right now. 27 minutes, really dominant fighting a lot of the way, and they were down 3,000 gold to start things off. GAM looking really